Hey everybody, it's Charles from HumbleMechanic.com. Today, I'm taking your questions on DSG noises, engine rebuilding, AC certification, and more. This is episode 193 of the Humble Mechanic Podcast. All right, in order to get a question on a show like this, be sure to email me, charles@humblemechanic.com, right down here below. Put question for Charles in the subject, ask a question, give me some space, then give me the details of your question. That really does help me out a lot. Also, if you don't see your question on a show like this, be sure to check out the Quick Videos playlist on YouTube where I do one question per video. You'll also see down in the description timestamps for each video, so if you want to just jump right to a question, scroll down a little bit and click the timestamp for that question. All right, let's talk about the sponsor of the day, which is CRP Automotive. CRP deals in a ton of OE maintenance and repair parts, timing belt kits, suspension components, and even fluids. In fact, they make the factory DSG fluid for Volkswagen and Audi. So check them out at crpautomotive.com. And don't forget, if you want exclusive content from me, discounts to places like Black Forest, MT Knives, Eastwood, Adams Polishes, S&P Automotive, Eurowise, and more, check out the Crew Membership program. It's a great way to help support me and the show, as well as get a huge return on your dollar investment. There's a link down in the description so you can learn more there. All right, with all that wrapped up, let's get to the questions. First one comes from Jose. It says, I have a 2017 Polo 1.2 TSI with a 7-speed DSG. Let's say I'm at a stoplight and there's a slight incline. When I release the brake and slowly hit the gas, a noise comes out of the transmission. I believe it seems as if the clutch was slipping. The noise is like metal ribs against each other. Is this noise normal for a dry clutch DSG? I'd really love to hear from you on this topic. Really like your videos. Thanks for your time. So, worldwide, the dry clutch DSG in VW Audi, I assume Audi anyway, Volkswagen anyway, Charles, stick to what you know, was way more popular than it was here in the States. In the States, only, at least as of May of 2017, only the Jetta hybrid had it. So one car and a very limited number of production vehicles. So we're not talking like a ton of vehicles. So most dealer techs don't have a lot of experience with this transmission as compared to something like 09G valve bodies or even wet clutch mechatronic unit DSGs. So let me try and help as best I can, but understand that I am definitely not an expert on this transmission. Again, one car had it. So there are, in the hybrids anyway, a pretty common clutch failure. Not very widespread, not even as many, I think, in percent-wise as the DSGs that are wet clutches are, but these clutches do wear out, and they do fail. In the dry clutch system, it is essentially like having two clutch discs inside the transmission. I mean, it is very much a dry clutch, just like a manual transmission. The setup's different, and of course the clutches don't match, and you couldn't change one out for the other. But the system works almost identical to that. So you very well likely may have probably not a worn clutch, being a 2017, but perhaps a part failure of that clutch. So the first thing I would do if this were my car, and this was a brand new car for 2017, I'd call the dealership and make an appointment to get it looked at. There's no sense in you diving in to try and fix this yourself when the car is under warranty. The reason is, one, don't waste your time on it because you shouldn't spend your time for a failure like that. And two, if you go in and start messing around with it, like into the box or start taking stuff apart on the car, the dealership now has ammunition to say, well, how do we know it wasn't like this before? Or maybe you caused the problem, and they're going to kick you to the curb and deny the warranty claim. Whether they should or shouldn't, whole different topic. So let's put that up on the box for now. But they could easily say that, and to be fair to them, they could be right. They don't know. So get it to the dealership and get it looked at. Odds are there's something loose inside the bell housing where the clutches live. Perhaps the adjustment isn't correct when it was getting built, because there is adjustments for those. So I would take it into the dealership. I would go with the mindset that in order to get it fixed, you're going to have to duplicate it for them. One of the hardest parts about fixing cars is duplicating the problem, especially when it's a very specific circumstance or a very random occurrence. You know, if this did it every single time you were on a hill, Okay, that gets considerably easy. Well, if it does it like 4 times out of 20, maybe not quite so easy. So go with the mindset, I know it sucks. You're going to have to duplicate it for them. You may have to leave it. You may have to bring it back a couple times. It's going to all depend on the caliber of technician that gets your car when it comes through the shop and how good the dealership really overall is at fixing cars. You know, the guy that gets it may be the new guy, which actually isn't a bad thing, but the guy next to him may have done 40 of those clutches and seen or heard this noise or seen this problem, 50 times and has a ton of experience on it. So it can be a bit frustrating, and I understand it's frustrating from a customer standpoint. It's frustrating from a tech standpoint too. But dude, your car's brand new. Get it to the dealership. Make sure they document the noise. Make sure there's a repair order open on it. That way, long term, if something goes on, you have documentation to back that up. So Jose, I wish I knew pinpoint, here's a problem. Unfortunately, I don't, and it's really hard to diagnose noises over the internet anyway. So good question. Thanks so much. And hey, do us all a favor. Keep us posted on what they find, because that may help someone else, customer or technician, get their car fixed faster the next time. All right, next up from Peter, gotta say thanks for the lot of YouTube videos on the white Wookie. More Wookie videos coming soon, guys. Big help watching them on my current project. I've been working on a Corrado VR6 that has a head gasket issue. Since replacing the head gasket, the compression is low and it won't run right, so I'm going to do the head again. I've noticed on your videos you took the cams out and didn't remove the cam sprockets where I did. Is it possible to install the cams again when it's ready to time the engine back up without removing the sprockets? Can the bottom end be set to TDC and then place the cams back in, just fit the chain on the top cams? All right, so I think what you are asking is you're gonna leave the bottom timing where it is, and you're only gonna take the head off and leave the sprockets on the cams and not do the chain, because hopefully you did the chain on the first head gasket job. Couple of things. Since your compression is low, you want to get the head checked and make sure that there's not a valve issue or something like that if you didn't on the first one. I'd be really concerned as to why the compression is low. If you haven't taken the head off yet or the cams are in, I would do a cylinder leak down test, because you got to know where that compression's going, right? It's typically not just low because it's low. It's typically going somewhere. So valve guides, maybe a valve's not seated all the way. Maybe the cam's messed up. Who knows? You're going to have to do some digging. I would really dig into this before I spent the time and money to do another head gasket, because that's not, one, it's a time-consuming job, and two, it's not a very cheap job either. So do some more digging before you just tear the engine apart. On your question about timing, so yes, I did leave the cam gears on the cam shafts. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, it was just how I was taking it apart. Typically, for me anyway, I'm not replacing a camshaft on other engine jobs, so there's no point in taking the sprocket off. That's just one more bolt to replace. It's 3 parts that I got to be responsible for. It's easy just to leave them on. In this case, I am going to be replacing the camshaft, so I'll have to now take those sprockets off, which would have been easier with it all bolted up. So either way, it's fine. You can leave the gears on. If I were doing this the way you're going to do it, I would mark everything, right? Put paint marks on the gear, on the chain, make sure it's all set to TDC, make sure your tool fits in the back side, or technically the front side of the engine, but the back side as compared to the chain of the camshafts, and make sure everything's lined up and mark it. And then yes, you should be able to do exactly what you're trying to do, and it won't be a problem. One thing of caution though, when you bolt those camshafts down, you don't necessarily want it to be at TDC. You want to back the engine up about 1/8, 1/4 of a turn. This is not an interference engine, but you don't want to do is you don't want to torque the camshafts down and have 2 valves or 1 valve open and hit the piston crown and cause a problem there. If it's not at TDC, you can't have that happen, but if it is, there's potential for it. So in all the repair manuals, it says back the engine up. This is the one time you can turn an engine backwards. Back the engine up a little bit and make sure that none of the pistons are all the way up at the top. So yeah, you can do what you're trying to do. It's probably the most common way that people were doing it. If I were only doing a head gasket on that car, on the Wookie, that's how I would have done it. But since we were doing chain guides, chains, and sending the head out to get rehabbed and all that stuff, there was really no point in marking anything. It all was going to be from scratch rebuilt, which I'm going to be working on very, very soon. I'm actually getting a setup now to paint the block. You got to find out why it's got low compression. I'd hate for you to do another head gasket and you're getting blow-by through the rings or something like that. This is an opportunity to do it again and do a more thorough job and find out exactly what the problem is. You may come to find out that it needs piston rings, and now it may be cheaper to perhaps source another engine rather than put more money into this one. It really all depends on what you find when you do your diagnosis. So Peter Man, I hope that helps. Good luck, and guys, thanks for sticking with me on the White Wookie. I know there's been a long time since we've worked on it, but we're gonna be getting back into that hot and heavy really soon. All right, next one comes from my good buddy Matthew with 1T. I need to take my ASE 609 HVAC certification test, but I can't find where to take it online. Any advice? I've gone through the HVAC course through VW and need to take the certification test. I've heard there's an online test, but I'm having trouble finding it. Can you help point me and others in the right direction? Okay, so what is 609 certification? What does it mean? What does HVAC mean? What does ASE mean? What does all these little acronyms in the automotive world mean? Let's start with 609 first. 609 is the certification that automotive technicians or mobile mechanics, right, people that work on mobile vehicles, I guess all vehicles are mobile, so a little redundant there, but people that work on mobile HVAC systems. If you are working on a home system, there is a different certification for that. And it just so happens that Charles has his VW training book right here. Stapled to the back is my 609 certification. Oddly enough, I took that test May 15th of 2003, so if you're watching this video on the day it comes out, that was exactly 14 years ago today. Kind of cool. I took it at UTI in class. That was part of the training. I'm really surprised, though, Matthew, that the instructors at the Volkswagen Academy down in the ATL didn't offer you to take it while you were there. That seems really strange to me, because in order to legally work on air conditioning in cars, you really do have to have this certification. So it's a little strange to me that your instructor did not necessarily push everybody to take it while they were there, or at least have an option for it. So I did some research and I found that the place I would go if I were going to take this test is to MAX, Mobile Air Conditioning Society. It's maxw.org. I'll put a link down in the description, so don't worry about remembering that. They have all the resources for you to take this test. You can take the test right through them. It's $20 and it never expires. Dude, this test is super easy, and the best part, guys, the best part, you don't have a teacher leaning over your shoulder watching you. It is an open book test, so there's no reason anyone should fail it. So go to macsw.org. There's study material. You can learn all about how this stuff works. You can do all the test prep before you take the test. But again, remember, this is an open book test, so you should have no problem passing it. It's multiple guess, should be very, very easy and straightforward. You're going to need to know things like, when is refrigerant a liquid? When is it a gas? When is it cold? When is it hot? How does the refrigerant cycle in a vehicle work? Those are some of the things you're going to need to know. But again, open book doesn't get much easier than that. So Matthew, good question. And anybody else looking to take this test, check out Max. Guys, even if you have passed this, 14 years ago today, Max is an incredible resource for air conditioning stuff. For a lot of us, we're going to be exposed to this new air conditioning freon, or refrigerant, I should say, called 1234YF. So go there. You can learn a little bit more about it. Max is a great resource, guys. I had an opportunity to meet one of the dudes that works with Max way back when I did that ASE test writing seminar, or whatever you call it. Really cool dude. And again, that's when I first learned about Max. So it's a great resource for you to have on air conditioning stuff. And dude, that's where I'd go to take that test. There's also links to like EPA resource. And if you want to really get nerdy and deep into some of this EPA stuff, you can go there. But for most of us, all you have to have is that little badge, or in my case, card, that says you passed that test. All right, guys, last one of the day comes from Barry. It's about remote start on a 2010-2011 Tiguan. My boss asked me if I'd be willing to install remote start on his wife's Tiguan. I'm very comfortable doing the wiring and the electrical work on vehicles. I'm not familiar with VWs, and all the vehicles today have very complicated electronic systems. So my question is there anything I need to look out for? Are there certain wires or components that I must stay away from? I want to keep this vehicle safe and reliable and don't want to inadvertently disable or cripple any of the systems. So, very good question. A couple of things. First of all, I'm shocked that Volkswagen doesn't have an add-on remote start for all their cars, right? Remote start is awesome. It's just mind-boggling to me why they don't have this as an option. Everything's there, right? Everything is there. There's no reason why it's, maybe a couple of wires, or really what it could even be just coding. Coding is all it would take, I think anyway, to add these systems. But since they don't, let's talk about putting an aftermarket one on. The only thing you're really going to disable, or not really disable, but more like defeat or bypass, kind of all the same thing, is the vehicle's immobilizer system. So in order for us to start our modern cars, as we approach putting the key in the ignition, or if we have push button, the proximity is a little bit bigger, we have a system called Immobilizer that reads a little pill inside of the key. I've actually done blog posts, I think, on this, maybe a video too. And it says, okay, this key is cool for this car. I'm gonna go ahead and start. Because you're not putting the key in or having the key inside the vehicle to push button start it, the remote start can't start the car. So what most people do is they'll take an extra key and they'll tape it up underneath the dash so that there is a programmed key inside the vehicle to allow you to start the car. On the one hand, this completely defeats the immobilizer system because now there's always a key inside the car. On the other hand, and in my opinion in the real world, that doesn't really matter a whole lot. If someone wants to steal your car, they're gonna steal your car. Now, we don't want to do stupid things like leave the windows down and the keys in it, unless our goal is to have it stolen, maybe. But, if you lock your car, odds are no one's going to steal your car. If your car is Jason's old Integra, you might get it stolen more than once. So I don't worry too much about this anymore. I used to be like, don't do it because someone's going to steal your car. And in my older, wiser, hopefully anyway, age, I've realized that it's not that big a deal. It's similar to wheel locks. If someone wants to steal your wheels are getting stolen whether you got wheel locks on it or not. It doesn't really matter. It's sort of like locked doors only keep honest people out. So think about it in that mindset. Guys, if you know of any other aftermarket remote starts that are maybe more plug and play or have its own immobilizer defeating system software inside of it, please post that down in the comments section and maybe we can point Barry in a direction of one that's really, really good quality. So maybe he doesn't have to worry about buying a junky one from China, eBay or Alibaba or something like that. In my day, back in the day, it was the Viper alarm systems, where the commercial had the snake that scared the dude away. Those were the jam, but it's been a long time since I've worked in the aftermarket car audio, especially remote start and alarm world. So let's pool together as a community, give Barry a hand, and hopefully we can help him out. All right, guys, that wraps it up for today. Awesome group of questions as always. If you have a comment, I highly recommend put it down in the comment section below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up on YouTube. I always appreciate that. Don't forget to subscribe and ding the notification bell on YouTube, or sign up for email alerts on humblemechanic.com. That's a way you know you get everything. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course Snapchat. Don't forget about the Crew membership program if you want exclusive videos, link down in the description. Hey, also, if you buy stuff on Amazon, do me a favor, use my Amazon link. I get a little bit of credit from it. It doesn't cost you anything extra. That's another free way really to help support me and the show, and gives me the opportunity to upgrade equipment and things like that from Amazon. So there's also a link down in the description. So guys, with that, I'm out. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.